Hey guys, thank you again for listening in. We really appreciate the support. Let us know what you want us to talk about next, or any suggestions or feedback. There'll be a link in the description so that you can ask anonymously, and always share with any of your friends or family who want to learn about investing. Peace. You said there was another question?
Another question was blue chip stocks on the JSE. Not sure what exactly
I guess
he's
I
asking.
asked, maybe
Maybe
we
he's
can
asking what are the blue chip stocks? Blue chip to me means just like a very reputable company, like a big company, like a give me a blue chip stock on the JSE. Grace Kennedy. I think a lot of financial advisors, when I just started, they were just like, yo, buy Grace, buy this, buy that. I think, what's another big company?
NCB,
Wisinco, NCB. Okay, those are
Massey.
some blue
Yeah, so
chip
when I look
stocks.
on Investopedia, what is a blue chip stock? A blue chip stock is a huge company with an excellent reputation. These are typically large, well-established, and financially sound companies that have operated for many years and that have dependable earnings, often paying dividends to investors. But I mean, what you can literally look at a lot of the main market companies are blue chip. So NCB, Sagicor, Massey, Guardian, Scotia, Barita, GK, JMMB. Yeah, it's a lot of main market companies. They're companies that it's very hard for them to fail. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So for example, if they're running into issues, a lot of times they can, get help. So it's like they can get debt, they can borrow money, they can do a lot of things so it's very hard for them to fail, even if they're going through tough times versus a much smaller company. I mean, in general though, it is listed companies are pretty hard to truly like kill. The only delisting that I remember, and I think this was before I properly started mentioning the market, there was like, was it Sweet River or something like that?
Sweet, or you
Some
mean there's a pig
abattoir.
company? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an abattoir. Yeah,
Not Sweet River. That was
trying to
one
remember
that
the
I think
name.
delisted. And then wait, no, there was like Tree of Knowledge or
Sweet
something like that.
water.
Sweet
What was
River.
it?
Sweet River. Sweet River. Yeah, see
My
it on
goodness,
JSC.
you're you're bringing up old memories, bro.
Yeah. But the thing, but I don't know. I feel like the question that they were also asking, maybe I'm just thinking they're asking the blue chip stocks, but they're also maybe asking our opinion on maybe
Blue
the
chip.
term blue chip. Like, I guess, okay, let me say so for some of those blue chip companies that we listed, so like, the NCB, Massey, Guardian, I have invested in some of them before. So for example, I bought GK in the past. I made some decent gains off of GK. I think that's probably, let me see, I've bought like Wisinco to Carib Cement, some of those other blue chip stocks. The only thing with I guess this is my preference, I generally like more junior market companies, because the thing is with some of these blue chip stocks, to move the price to the percentage gains that I typically want, it's a lot harder versus a junior market company. A junior market company, I find that I can get the percentage gains I want, or basically higher percentage gains in shorter time periods. So I'm basically more likely to reach my goals. Because if you look at it, how much does it take to, for example, move a company like NCB share price by like 50%? So if you're buying NCB, right? Let me look. So I'm looking at the queue, big up my money JA for the tally feature. Right now you can buy NCB at a little over $100. It closed at 102 on this day, which is June 25th, 2022, right? To get NCB to, say I wanted a 50% goal in like 1 year, to get, and based on this current queue, To get NCB to hit $150, you would need 71 million Jamaican dollars to be spent to get the 50%, right? But then if you look at a junior market company, for example, and then you wanted that same 50%, it's a lot easier. There's less money
because of the float. The float is like just the amount of shares that are available for people to trade, right? So typically, a lot of the junior market companies, because you can only raise a certain amount. I think right now the cap is 500 million, right? So you can if you're doing an IPO and you want to be on the junior market, it's between 50 million JMD to 500 million. So the amount of shares, depending on the price, but the amount of shares would be lower, right? As opposed to like a main market company like NCB, right? There must be a ton of shares out there, so the float is much larger for a lot of these companies. So it's easier to move a share price. If big money hits one of these junior market companies, it's easier for the price to move than for a main market company or like a blue chip on the main market is what I should say. So I get what you're saying, but in my opinion, every company has its time. Like every dog has its day. Every company has its time. Look at GK. GK moved up from, I remember I bought for my mom at $61 and sold at 100. Right? That's about 40 odd percent. Sold at 100 and a little bit.
Yeah.
I think 103 or something like that.
Yeah, back then,
That's like
I remember looking at GK and I was just like, it was just so undervalued when it was like 60. Because when I was doing, for example,
I mean, even now it's still undervalued.
Yeah, true. But like, it was just disgustingly undervalued, man. I remember, big up Shaq again. Like we used to do the numbers, like look at the PE, and then we're looking at the current earnings, and then remember we were projecting earnings. So we were like, okay, if GK, I think the time that I made that GK play for myself was, I think it was leading up to maybe the Christmas quarter. Because, for example,
which year was that?
Not last year. I think the year before that.
Let me see.
So that would have been leading up to maybe 2020.
2020. Yeah, it's like end of 2020.
Let me see.
Yeah, this is December 1, 2020. The close price is $62.
They typically have a good, one of their best periods is the Christmas quarter, because I think remittances are usually really high during that period when families send down a lot of money and stuff.
And remittances were extremely high in COVID time. Like remittances skyrocketed. I remember there was one, I think it was remittances. There was a time where it went up like 30% in the pandemic, when the pandemic just started, because a lot of people were laid off their jobs in Jamaica and so on. Or there's just the future was uncertain, and so if they have like family members abroad, they would send money to them. And GK, I think, is the primary selling agent for Western Union in Jamaica.
Yeah.
So they would eat a food off of that. Like you send down money.
Off of that. So that was the thing. It wasn't even like it was the first time. They had been dropping reports. And remember, if you read the reports, they tell you usually that they'll be like, I think they broke down this, they did like segment reporting. So they would tell you because GK is generally split into the financial side and the food side, and then they would tell you, oh, the financial side was doing really, really well. And the thing is, before, I think at the time, the side that was earning them more money was actually the financial side. But if you notice, the food side, I think, has now surpassed it. I'd have to check the most recent report. I don't know if it's changed, but the food side has been doing extremely, extremely well, because they've been exporting a lot. Like they speak up, I think they have some, there's like a goal thing that they have for GK's Vision.
Goal.
Yeah.
Vision 2030 was it?
GK Vision 2030. About how much of their revenues they want from outside of Jamaica and stuff like that. And most of the revenues they want.
Also
Hold on, let me pull it up.
List. Yeah, find it. Oh, I see it.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, they want 70% of their revenues and profits to be earned outside of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
70. So
That's
they
big.
really are trying to push their
Do you know? I'm
foods
wondering how much
outside.
percent it is now. I think it's the majority now. If I have to double check, but yeah. Oh, but you said something that I think we should possibly touch on. The some of the like GK is a pretty nice play in my books. Because of some of the things they've spoken of. Because remember they've spoken about listing aspects of their business on overseas stock exchanges. So
I love how you said aspects of their business as well. Because if you look in the vision, it says GKFG, right, and GK Foods. So GK Financial Group and Foods are listed on Caribbean. This is one of the things that I wanted, listed on Caribbean and major overseas stock exchanges. So I mean,
and then why would they list it then?
I mean, there's so many reasons for a listing. I mean, you can, if you wanted to, would it be an IPO, or would it be more of a secondary offering? Because they're already listed here. But if you're listing on another exchange, would it be an IPO?
Technically I think it should be, but there might be other ways that they could do it. But I mean, I was really just hinting at the fact that they're going to be raising a lot of money. They're going to be selling up parts of the business. And if you think about it, right? And I think they've spoken about, I think the exchanges that I think they've spoken about, they said, I think the London Stock Exchange or the, I think it might have been the New York Stock Exchange.
And NASDAQ.
Or the NASDAQ, they said. Oh.
Yeah, but I think I remember some articles, it seemed as if they were leaning more towards a London Stock Exchange. But I would want them to list on the NASDAQ too. Why not? And as we said, listing in and of itself is also an act of marketing. So if they're really trying to push their revenues and sell their products outside of Jamaica, listing could definitely push that.
But the thing, and then meds, they're going to be listing part of the business, right? They're going to be getting money. They're going to be getting likely, foreign money.
Foreign my blood.
So if they list on a US exchange, they get US. If they list on a London, they'll get, euros or whatever. With that money, like the money that those markets are a lot larger than, our Jamaican market. Their companies, look at things like Apple, Tesla, the market caps of those companies. Those are huge companies. Those markets, they can easily supply money to GK, millions and millions of US.
6 million times 100 million.
I'm wondering how that could, there's so many different ways that they could do it, to be honest. Because I think just the news, when it actually comes out, them telling us, okay, we are going to list on the London Stock Exchange and we're going to be selling this amount, and then they're going to tell us, what they're going to do with the money. That in itself could send GK's share price flying on our market, because they're just like, they're going to be raising a ton of money. And then look back to what GK has spoken about over the last probably 2-3 years. They've spoken about mergers and acquisitions. They literally formed a division of the business just for mergers and acquisitions. I think it's a guy named Leo Riney is the head of the division. So they are very serious about the mergers and acquisitions. It's a big priority to them. So what they could do, for example, suppose they go to the London market, they say, okay, remember GK already has a huge presence in, like, for example, the UK. They could come to the market and say, we are going to be, listing, but we're going to be using that money to buy an overseas foods company. So they could list GK Foods in the UK.
I mean, they're already doing that kind of here. They're already doing that here, though. Like, even with Spurtree, they're taking a stake in Spurtree. They already have I mean, they brought Spurtree to market. So, and based on what Spurtree's plans are, they want to expand more into the foods market, right? They want to expand their product line into more foods instead of just like sauces and so on. So, one way for them to do that is with GK's presence. GK could take a nice enough stake, right, and push a lot of their products through, or help Spurtree, because Spurtree already has like the infrastructure, right? They have the factories and so on, so it wouldn't be too hard to start pushing stuff like that. I mean, they already sell Akis. Grace also sells Akis too, so Grace could push their canned Aki business line through Spurtree. And if GK, and you know GK is serious, GK has done all these mergers before, right? If they're fully serious and they're in that, they have that footprint in a first world country, maybe like England or even US or so on, they could do that and acquire other businesses in the US and push their products through them. So it's fully possible, and they've done it before. They've acquired so many other companies. I think they acquired they own most of what Catherine's Peak now, and I think they own 876 Water as well.
As in they have a stake in it, or are you saying they own it fully?
Which one?
876. I'm trying to remember how much.
I swore they own 876 fully. I know that I don't think they own Catherine's Peak fully.
Hold on. So I see GraceKennedy has come to an agreement with Bliss Limited and Unibev Limited to acquire the 876 water brand, spring water brand. Well, it sounds like it's them fully buying it, and this is on their website. And I see another article in March last year. GraceKennedy has struck a deal to and it says, so in this article, March 21st, they mentioned the Catherine's Peak. They say GraceKennedy's purchase of the brand, which it was referring to 876, adds to its water portfolio, which includes a 35% share of the Catherine's Peak water brand. And it distributes Catherine's Peak. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they possibly buy the rest of Catherine's Peak. I mean, if you look at the size of a company like GK, do you think they really want small stakes and stuff like that? Like
it depends on their purposes for the company, because if they just want to push a few products through, an associate stake is fine enough for them.
But the thing is, they distribute for Catherine's Peak though, you know? So why would I? It's like, I'm distributing your product. Why don't I just buy it and distribute my own product versus...
I mean, do they have to? Because why spend all that money to buy it? And your plans, you already distribute. So let's say your target is to distribute a certain amount of this company. Like, you already distribute all of Catherine's Peak. Why buy the whole of it, right? Because yes, you're making a food off of the distribution. You're making they own 35% of it.
Well, based on this article, this was last year though, so I don't know if it changed.
They've increased their holdings.
I don't know.
I mean, if you're comfortable with the amount of profits that you are making from this business line, from this company, why increase your stake?
How I see it is that you can make more money. I don't know. I mean,
I guess you could.
I guess in
I'm
my
not
head,
saying no, you know. But I'm just saying, let's say you have look at them. They bought piece of Catherine's Peak, but then they bought the whole of 876 Blue Mountain water. So, you know, like, maybe they see that as something more profitable. Who knows?
I guess, you know, this brings up a point. You remember Chris Berry? Big up Chris Berry once again.
Always.
He made a tweet. I'm gonna try to find it. This guy, he's honestly one of the funniest accounts in terms of like stocks and stuff like that.
I think I know which tweet you're talking about too.
So the tweet he made, I guess I will try to save it in the description. So he said on April 4th, 2022, GK Bank, which I think he was think it was maybe referring to First Global. I think I'm pretty sure First Global isn't First Global probably the only commercial bank they own. I would have to double check. But he says GK Bank is too small to really have an impact. Do they buy Scotia or NCB or JMMB? And then he put a tweet under it. If I were the Don of GK, I would buy Scotia.
The Don of wordplay on Don Webby. Wow. He's hilarious, yeah, honestly.
And then someone replies, can they afford any of the above? And he's like, strap yourselves in. Let's go for the ride.
Oh gosh. This guy is hilarious, yo.
Yeah. So, and the thing is that they bought an aspect of Scotia, was it last year?
In the Eastern Caribbean?
Yeah, let me see.
The insurance.
Yeah, they bought an aspect of Scotia's. Let me see. So let's pull up the article. This is from GraceKennedy themselves. It says GK has come to an agreement with Scotia Insurance Caribbean Limited to acquire 100% of the shares of Scotia Insurance Eastern Caribbean Limited, SICL. And then it says SICL is a licensed life insurance company operating in 7 countries in the Eastern Caribbean: Anguilla, Antigua, Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So a bag of companies in the Eastern Caribbean. And it also
they renamed it. They renamed it to, I think, GK Life Insurance Eastern Caribbean Limited. Yeah.
Oh. So I think that's something that's interesting. There's like the thing is
they're making moves, like on both sides.
They're one of the most aggressive. They're probably one of my favorite blue chip stocks right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
for sure. I mean, look at the price they're at. And
suppose them say split. Not just split the business. Them say stock split. Or suppose them split the business and then the list. Suppose they split GK and then the list like GK Foods on. Well, hold on. They said.
Because how they speak about GK is they always separate it, like GKFG, which is the financial group, and GK Foods. And they always said that they want to list a section of the business. So I don't think they would just list the group, they would just list different sections. You were saying something about you're looking for something or something like that?
Oh, I was saying that they're probably one of my more favorite blue chip stocks because the level of aggression I'm seeing with them and then the possibilities that they have spoken about. Comparing, for example, like right now, would you buy NCB over GK?
I mean, the good thing with blue chip stocks is you can push a lot of money through it. So if you're a person that have like big money
popping, huh?
Right.
What you call big money?
Can. I don't know, bro.
You don't know yourself, bro?
No, I don't have big money. I literally don't have big money at all.
I know you say make 100% in how long again? How long?
You don't know how much money I put in. And trust me, it wasn't that much money I put in, to be honest.
Yes,
but what I'm saying is, big money. If I was to put a number on big money, I'd say if you're buying a stock, and it's like maybe about between 5 to 10 mil, right? Or anything greater than 10 mil is big money, in my opinion. If you're putting 10 mil in a stock, right, I don't think GK is a bad play at all. And you can get 10 mil in and out.
10 mil into one stock?
I wouldn't say necessarily in one. I mean, other companies do that.
10 mil into one stock?
Fully done.
It's funny how Chris Berry was talking about buying a bank. GK is too small. Do they buy a certain bank? But I mean, they've bought JMFB. They have millions of dollars in JMMB. They bought them when?
GK?
Yeah. No, this is Mayberry now. Because I'm talking about Chris Berry.
Yeah.
So
You
this
mean
is Mayberry
MJE?
by
MJE.
MJE.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was
Buying
interesting still.
a very large stake in JMFB. Like buyback amount.
Well, let me look at the. Yeah, that's the funny way. That's funny. That's another thing to talk about one day. The JMMB, the famous buyback, or just buybacks in general.